Hi there, it's Lauren, and today I wanted to share briefly about building a visual guide for your brand. A visual guide is essentially just a concise reference of the message of your brand, the way you represent yourself to the world. And I have kind of approached this two different ways. I built my first one when I was rebranding my business recently. I had done photography for a long time, but I was refocusing it, renaming it, and centering now on brand and lifestyle photography. And so I processed visually, and it made sense for me to kind of put the pieces together with mood boards and color samples, and those all kind of morphed to become what now is kind of a PDF and a couple Pinterest boards, which I would consider my visual guide. And that was so helpful for me that now I've actually continued doing that with clients before photo shoots. So we'll talk through some of those basics of how they want people to feel when they think about their business, who they're marketing to, what their ideal client and project is, and kind of narrowing that down, and then how that all translates to the props we use, the photos we take, the style and the textures that we go for. And so I want to walk you through the PDF. If you haven't downloaded that worksheet, go ahead and do that now, and I will share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, let's jump into the PDF here. And this first page, I want you to get started with the message of your business. When you chose your name, maybe you had a reason for that or kind of a vision for why that name was the perfect fit. So I want you to list your name and talk about why you picked that. If not, you don't need to feel pressure to rename your business. But for me, the name Evernew, it meant something to me. It represented the warmth, the life that I wanted my message and my brand to communicate. So you can list that there. Then it kind of goes into what you want people to feel about your business. You can circle the words there to give you some ideas. You can describe what kind of impact you want to have in people's lives. Do you want them to feel excited and motivated? Do you want them to feel comforted and nurtured? Do you want them to feel bold and adventurous? Think through the tones of your message, the feelings and the emotions. And this page, it's simple and short, but my goal is that you'll start thinking about the adjectives that would describe your brand. So clarify for yourself the message and the tone of your brand here on page 1. And now on page 2, we're going to talk more about your audience, and not just a broad crowd that you're speaking to, but specifically your favorite client, your dream person that you want to have over and over and over again. So I want you to do that on that first question. Just think about your dream person that you worked with. Maybe you haven't even worked with them. Maybe you're just getting started and you have to kind of imagine the type of person, maybe a friend or a family member that you totally share a vision with them, you have things in common, and you would love to share a project with them. Maybe it's somebody else in your field that you really respect and you love their attitude and their personality and the way they approach their work. So think through either a client or somebody who could be a client who has been a dream to work with, and describe what it is about them. Is it their optimism? Is it their courage and their confidence? What is it about them that would make it such a dream to work with them? What inspires you about that person? And then it's also good to just think through, especially if you're a service-based business, what that project is that you would want to do with them. And the more specific you can get, the better. We want it as simple as possible and as narrow as you can get. So it doesn't mean that you're going to turn down every other person besides this one ideal person and project. But the more specific you can get, the easier it will be for you to write your captions, to write your newsletters, to choose your photos and your colors, because you now have a specific person in mind that you're talking to. So I'm going to have you get even more specific, and you're going to choose an age range, what kind of relationships they might be in, where they might live and what they might enjoy doing. And I just gave some examples there. Feel free to expand outside of that, but this will help you think through what they value and what's important to them. They run their own business? Do they have kids? What is it that is a frustration or a pain point for them that you can specifically speak to? Maybe it's something you've been through. Maybe you've been through a health crisis, or you've been through a really hard job that you had to give up. Maybe it's something you can specifically speak to through the service you're offering, through the product you're providing. But the more specific you can get on their strengths, their hobbies, their joys, as well as their pains, their weaknesses, and their frustrations, the better it's going to be. So jump in here and really think through that. And then at the bottom, I asked, do you share any hobbies with your ideal client? And the idea here is that you do not have to have all overlapping hobbies, but if there are some things you share in common, which I'm guessing there is because there's probably a reason they're your ideal client, that can really help as you think of content to create. So I have just found this really helpful, especially for Instagram as I'm doing stories and captions. It gives me personal ideas to share. So maybe I share some business things that aren't, so hobby related. But as far as like sharing about my life and connecting with my dream client, it's helpful for me to think about them as having hobbies like coffee or hiking, things that I enjoy. And so I'll share some of those things, and it builds connection with the people that I really want to work with, which is fun. Okay, so last page here, you're going to start putting it all together and getting more specific. So here's where I said make a Pinterest account if you haven't already, because that is such a helpful resource for putting this all together and making it visual for yourself. So you're welcome to have it in writing here on this PDF. You're welcome to type it into a Google Doc and kind of combine things there. But Pinterest boards are also really helpful. Under action plan, I said make a Pinterest board and collect images that reflect your dream audience. So I want to jump over and show you some of what I have. So I just made up an imaginary name for my dream client. In my case, she's like 24 to 30, and she runs a kind of a handcrafted business. And I could tell you more about her, but here's kind of what she enjoys and what she likes. These are some quotes that would resonate with her. Really, her goal is to live life to the fullest. And so she values relationships. She lives simply. She doesn't need a lot of things. She is pursuing contentment and simplicity. She loves working with her hands, which means she probably loves gardening and cooking, and she loves traveling and seeing the life of other local people. This really is like a lot of what I like, but there are also differences, and there's ways that I can serve this ideal client and we can work together. So I've created this board, and it helps me focus in when I am about to write a blog post or a newsletter. It helps me remember that I'm writing to this specific person, not to the masses of people that might run across my content. I'm not writing to my mom who might follow me or my friend who might comment on my post. I'm writing to Kate, and I'm writing to her needs and her desires and the things that she values. So make a Pinterest board with something similar like this that you can look at and reference to know who you're talking to, what kind of things that they would value. And then I did make a second Pinterest board for my brand specifically. And you don't have to get this detailed and specific. This has kind of grown throughout the months as I've also worked on branding for Evernew, but you'll notice I added in some pictures of more thematic things. So some of them are textures and colors, and this was a really helpful way for me to pick my colors. So for Evernew, I have like a peach coral rust color, and then I have kind of a slate blue and a olive green. So you'll notice there are olive branches, there's a lot of green, and there's like pottery and wood, which is kind of my rust color. I'm going to talk about plants, I'm going to talk about travel and lifestyle and relationships and enjoying life and all the little simple things. So you can also make a second board if you would like to kind of distinguish between building your brand's colors and textures and differentiating from your dream client specifically, if that's helpful. So let's jump back over the PDF, and that's basically your your final details on your visual guide. What textures and what themes and what colors match your style and help represent your message. So hopefully they all kind of build on each other, and hopefully this will be a resource for you as you put together your message and your business. For me, it's just helped simplify it. I don't have to guess as much. I know what colors every time. I know what kinds of pictures for work best on my Instagram and what content to write for newsletters. So I hope it helps actually make things easier for you and really helps draw in your dream client.